Hello, everyone. We're just going to wait a second. And I'm sorry you guys had to log out. We'll try to make sure that you don't have to log out next time and can come back in. So this is a press conference with Issa Amro, whom we just announced as one of the 2024 Right Livelihood Laureates. My name is Emoke Bebiak. I'm the head of communications at Right Livelihood. And it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Issa and also his activist group, Youth Against Settlements, into the Right Livelihood community. Let's wait a couple more seconds to make sure everybody is here with us, and then we can get started. As we said in the previous session, we have a 30-minute slot here to hear from Issa, so I ask you to be brief with questions. And of course, if you have any more questions, we would be happy to connect you to him for a one-on-one interview or just to answer some additional questions you have. So Issa, without further ado, let's start with, I think, the question that is on everybody's mind as we are seeing the escalation, it seems daily in the Middle East. What is the situation like in Hebron this morning? How are you experiencing what is happening?
Thank you very much for this award. I have a mixed feeling to be happy or not to be happy. I'm very sad and my heart is broken about what's going on in Gaza and in the West Bank and now on Lebanon. The civilians are paying very high price for the Israeli violence and Israeli war. In Hebron, the situation is really hard and difficult. It was difficult before October 7th and became much more difficult because the Israeli military and the Israeli settlers felt that they are emboldened to do whatever they want and go on with their policy of pushing Palestinians away from their homes and pushing them away from their communities. Today, it's a curfew in Hebron. All the checkpoints are closed. Palestinians in H2, where I live, are under curfew because of the Israeli Rosh Hashanah, because of the Israeli New Year. So because of this holiday and to allow the Israeli illegal settlers come to my own city, they closed the checkpoints, they closed the streets, they closed the schools, they closed the whole community. So nobody is allowed to leave his or her house, and nobody is allowed to come in. And you add to that, soldiers are everywhere, and settlers are, with weapons because they were given more weapons by the Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is really violent and extremist. And they go around, they shout, they throw stones. We expect violence in the coming days. So we are under curfew and closure from yesterday till Saturday evening.
You mentioned, of course, that this has built up over time. Could you tell us about how the situation has changed since October 7th, which, of course, the anniversary is coming up in a few days?
In Hebron, we really suffer from Israeli occupation since very long time. I never left with freedom. It's occupation since very long time. After the Ibrahimi Mosque massacre in 1994, after Baruch Goldstein went into the mosque and killed 29 Palestinians, they changed the reality in the city. They closed the streets, they closed the markets, they closed the shops, they imposed a kind of a buffer zone. So we Palestinians, we are very restricted. And our life was very difficult. So we had around 77% of the shops closed by the Israeli military closure policy, and around 40% of the housing units became empty because of the Israeli military unit checkpoints, removing our identity. But after October 7th, we faced a different type of violence, aggression, and really it's not a life we can describe as a life. We are struggling to get services. We don't have real services. So plumbers, electrician, ambulance is not reaching our houses. We are struggling to get any small social life. No visitors, no friends, no families are allowed to visit. You can't leave the checkpoint all the time. It's a certain hours. and no security. We don't feel safe in our houses. I feel threatened, intimidated, and to be very honest, each time I leave the house, I think I will not come back to the house. Fourth, we are not allowed to show our identity. Our identity is, they are removing our identity. Nobody has in his house even a Palestinian flag, a Palestinian kufiya, anything. If they see it, they beat you up, they arrest you, they detain you, and they damage that flag or that Palestinian identity. So they are attacking our narrative. In the other hand, settler, they have their own welfare, quality life, parties, social life, services. They feel secure with the Israeli military and with their own guns. We don't have any protection, and we don't have the basics to live with dignity in our houses, in our communities. And it was very hard to function as a human rights defender. I was tortured and beaten and dismissed from my house. And almost every night and every day, they make my life harder and harder as a human rights defender. 2 days ago on the night, they just flew the drone in my yard, very close to my door, to as a kind of intimidation. That was the soldiers, and the soldiers are acting as militia, not as an army with instructions. Each soldier has his own opinion and his own, political behavior, and they can do whatever they want to us.
And yet you are continuing using nonviolent methods to resist all of this. Could you tell us a bit more about how you're doing that at the moment, and what is the impact of your work?
To be very honest, it's not only about me. It's about many other Palestinian activists, male and female activists. They work together day and night, not only with Youth Against Settlements, with many other groups and organizations in Palestine. They work very hard to increase the cost of the Israeli occupation and apartheid. We do nonviolence protests, we do campaigns, we do document the human rights violations and train the families to document the Israeli human rights violations. We do kind of support the community to stay and remain by building infrastructure for them. So we established a kindergarten, we established a women's center, we are establishing now, but the war delayed us, a cinema project. We do a lot of tours, we do a lot of media. We try to expose the Israeli occupation and apartheid on one hand. On the other hand, we try to reach globally, to reach human rights organizations, the UN, diplomats, officials from all over the world, to tell them about the truth, to tell them about the reality of the Israeli occupation and apartheid, and that Israel is not defending itself, and Israel is defending its occupation, its apartheid, its illegal settlements, and even it's their Israeli supremacy. And really, we try to show the hidden truth and give a first-hand testimony about what's going on the ground. These days, it's very difficult to lead tours. It's very difficult to talk to media. It's very difficult to communicate with the Palestinian families. So we are now focusing on helping the families to remain in their homes, because the policy of this current Israeli government is to really transfer the Palestinian families from Area C and H2 to other areas, to prepare West Bank to be annexed to Israel. I do a lot of media. I do a lot of visits to the families. I try my best to continue, and despite that, all my friends, they can't come and visit me in my house in our center in Tel Rumeda, because the area is completely closed. The main entrance to the house is closed, and they target our activists from time to time by detention, and they scare them and they intimidate them, and they make our life harder, because we are human rights defender. I was kidnapped on October 7th because I am Issa, who is well known for being a human rights defender. I was kidnapped by the Israeli soldiers and the Israeli settlers and tortured and sexually assaulted as well, as many other Palestinians who are suffering now from the Israeli military brutality, from the closure, from house demolition, from false arrest, and from violence, and from not allowing them to work or even to travel from one city to another. This is the situation in the West Bank. And you add to that what's going on in Gaza, the war, the genocide, and all the human rights violation we see. And now it's coming and going to the whole Middle East. This is what's going on, because the world doesn't want to pressure Israel to implement the international law and accept to be a normal member in the UN, who is really acting according to the the international law and according to the principles and the morals of everybody on earth, which is to see the human being as the most important asset.
Thank you, Issa. I would like to now open up the floor for questions. And as you do, you can either raise your hand and I will unmute you, and I just ask that you identify yourself. So let's start with Steffen Trumpf. Steffen, go ahead.
Yes, hi. My name is Steffen Trumpf from the German news agency dpa. Issa, congratulations to the Right Livelihood Award and respect for your work in Hebron first. I would like to ask you, if I may ask, what is your dream or your wish for the future of the Palestinian people, maybe both in the West Bank and in Gaza, and yeah, for their coexistence with the Israeli people?
My dream is that the whole world and the Israelis treat the Palestinians as a nation who deserve freedom, justice, and equality and self-determination, not to continue treating us as human animals who are only looking for shelter and food. And for sure, my dream is to have a peaceful solution to an end to the Israeli occupation and apartheid and build a better future for the Palestinians and the Israelis in Palestine together with full equality, either by one-state solution or two-state solution. And we should decide together what is the future for everybody. But we want to be recognized as an equal human being who deserve freedom, justice, and equality, and not live under occupation and under apartheid for the rest of our life.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? You can also write them in the chat, and I would be happy to read them out. We have Geseko. Go ahead, you're unmuted. Yeah.
I'm also calling from Germany for a magazine. I write an article about you and the other laureates. My question is, the situation seems so catastrophic you're living in, and almost without any hope in the moment. What are the steps, the wishes you have towards us living in peace and freedom? What could be done in this situation now? Because any kind of solidarity with the Palestinian cause is somehow seen as solidarity with Hamas, and then there needs to be some specific advice from you how civil society in the other countries can show solidarity with you without being criminalized in a way that they support terrorists. How do you think we should act? How do you think we could help your cause?
Thank you for this very important question. First of all, there is no change without paying a price. Wilson says, if you want to make an enemy, try to change something. So for sure, I'm paying very high price for my peaceful resistance, but I want you to be creative in what are you doing, especially in Germany. And really, you can do a lot, increase awareness among German about what's going on in the ground, about the Palestinian the rights. It's about the international law to be implemented, to make visits for diplomats, for lawmakers, for society leaders, for stakeholders in Germany to come and visit Palestine and Israel and listen to Palestinian and Israeli human rights defenders who try to make a change. In the other hand, we want Germany officials to know exactly that we want the international law to be implemented, and something else very important, that Palestinians exist and Palestinians are not Hamas. And Palestinians, me, I'm a human rights defender, and many other Palestinians, they believe in non-violence resistance, and our right of resistance should be, non-violence resistance should be respected by everybody on the world according to international law. And Palestinians can make a change, and they are really qualified to lead themselves and live without occupation and without apartheid, without illegal settlements. But mainly, we should do concrete actions, and without concrete actions, nothing will change. If we continue blindly supporting the Israeli occupation, it means the occupation will continue its violence, its wars, its illegal settlements, its apartheid, and for sure you will face some consequences of your speeches, your nonviolence actions and activities. But at the end of the day, we are acting according our principles and our morals, and we are a movement in the world, and we can together protect each other and make normal people understand that we see the human being as the most important asset, but all human beings should live equal in the same area, not to have Israeli settlers live under Israeli civilian law and we, the Palestinians, live under the Israeli military law. But we need to educate people, to talk to them, to not lose hope, to convince them to act according to the international law and according to the human being principles and morals. But I want everybody to be creative and think how they can be effective in their communities. And I see many people in Germany doing well, many people in Sweden doing well on pressuring their governments and the stakeholders to act according to the international law and to support the victims, not to continue blindly supporting the oppressors.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions for Issa? Anne, I will unmute you. You are welcome to ask your question.
Hello. Hey, my name is Anne Dieckhoff. I'm working for the German newspaper Taz, and I'm thinking about the psychological side, so to speak, of this, what seems to be hopeless conflict. But we learned yesterday that that hope is what is linking all the laureates this year, that they are able to keep up the hope despite their situation. So we've talked about that, but I was wondering, what do you think? How can the Israeli people and Palestinian people, what needs to be done so that they can have a future side by side and the prejudices, and the hatred? What can you do? Do you have Israeli partners, or what's the plan for that? How can you ever get over this hatred?
To be very honest, we should be very clear how to describe the situation here. It's an Israeli oppressors oppressing Palestinians. It's occupation and occupied Palestinians. So we live under Israeli occupation. We live without basic human rights because of the Israeli occupation. What we can do, me and many other Israeli partners, we work together to increase awareness in Israel and among international visitors from all over the world, especially the Jews, about how we should live together in the future based on equality, justice, and freedom for everybody. Unfortunately, the Israeli government now, the current Israeli government, and the previous governments, they never ever paid the price for their occupation and their apartheid. And the international community is acting with Israel in a wrong way. They think that giving Israel incentives to make peace is enough. Israel is taking the incentives and they refuse to make peace because they make profit from the occupation. Who's making profit from the occupation is the Israeli extremists and who are making money out of us. So we should use another methodology now to implement the international law on Israel, to act more with together, Israelis and Palestinians who believe in peace and believe in mutual recognition, because we, the Palestinians, we are not recognized by Israel as Palestinians, and our state is not recognized by Israel. But we Palestinians, the majority of the Palestinians, recognize Israel as a state and recognize the Israelis. So we need a pressure from outside. We need people from all over the world to put pressure on the occupier, to put pressure on the oppressor, not to try to pressure the victim and judge the victim and really stereotype the victims. We are the victims. We try to make change. I want to tell you this, something very important. Non-violence resistance, according to the Israeli military law, is not allowed. I am guilty until I'm proven innocent. This is something very important. This is why we don't have a real massive big movement of non-violence resistance in Palestine, because it's not allowed by the Israeli military law, and you will be arrested, detained, or blacklisted or punished if you do anything. So international voices, international diplomats, international leaders, these should put high pressure on Israel to make peace with the Palestinians and recognize Palestinians as human beings who deserve equal rights. Our responsibility as Palestinians to reform our leadership, to elect a normal, moderate leadership, and fight corruption and fight any kind of extremism or any kind of violence in our society.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question. If anybody has anything left. In the meantime, just a reminder that we are recording this, and we will be happy to share it with you. So if you would like the recording, please reach out to us. I don't see any more questions. Thank you, Issa, very much for joining us this morning. And congratulations again, even though it's very difficult circumstances that you are in. I will now end this webinar, but I will not close the window, so you can stay here if you would like to hear from our next laureate, Annabella Lemos. So with that, thank you very much, Issa.
Thank you very much, and thanks to Right Livelihood family. You are doing great, and you deserve my greeting, and you deserve to be part of this ceremony and this I can say this prize. Thank you.
Thank you.